90.3 WHPC, the voice of Nassau Community College. Welcome to another edition of From the Press Box. Today is March 30th, 2020. I am Rob Leonard. Joining me, of course, is award-winning sports writer and, yes, my brother, Tim Leonard. Hello, Tim. Welcome back. We took last week off.
Good morning, brother.
You feeling okay, brother?
Not really, but, I'm in self-quarantine, so that's how I feel.
I know you are.
It is what it is. It is what it is, but we got a sports show to do.
We do, and we're here every Monday, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. We're part of the WHPC Sports Talk family, which is normally 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. We've been doing different things. For those who don't know, the campus of Nassau Community College is closed, but if you're a student, and you already know this because you're doing it, there is classes online or via online. So you've already talked to your teacher and know this already. But a lot of people might not know, that the campus is closed, and that includes us because we're on the campus of Nassau Community College. That's where we broadcast from. That's where our license is from and everything else. So we're doing this thing differently. I'm at my house. Timmy is at his house. And this is being broadcast through Sean's house. So it somehow all connects. And to be honest with you, this is pretty cool, actually.
It's the future. This is the new world.
I don't know. Brother Tim, one of the things about radio is you come in and you complain to the people you work with in radio. That's just part of radio. You just start complaining about life. And, when you talk to Big Ed, is he happy, Tim? No, he's always upset about something.
Big Ed's always happy.
Big Ed hates driving on Long Island, man. You wind him up, and 20 minutes later, you still have to let him go.
Who enjoys that aspect of Long Island?
Well, I don't know, but I like listening to Big Ed talk about it. It's just part of radio. I mean, this could be
my car. My car was rear-ended in a hit-and-run accident a few weeks ago. That's. That means I don't have to drive on Long Island anymore. So I know, but come on, nobody likes driving on Long Island. It's necessary evil.
Well, one thing I will say: the last couple of weeks when I have gone out, there has been no one on the roads for good reason, of course. I mean, that's just good. This is part of it. Anyway, for those who don't know, our president has given another 30 days of basically doing nothing, which. In a way,
good job, Prez.
Yeah. Anyway, one thing that this is leading to, though, brother, is the sports world, and we know for a fact that nothing's going to happen in the month of April now. So that means correct. Baseball basically has to start over, basically with its spring training. If let's say May 1st. They say we're coming back, which I don't think we can't. No, we can't come in. Probably not, but it could be. We'll say that's possible. You would still need a month of spring training, or at least 3 weeks, just to get people back into shape. Because no one's working out right now.
No, they are, but they're gonna. It's still gonna take a few weeks to ramp things back up. I mean, that's just baseball, and baseball has been talking about. Many changes because they're gonna have to go back to preparing for the season before they can actually have the season. Now I've heard obviously the season for baseball will be abbreviated in some way, but from what I'm hearing, the owners want to try to play as many games as possible. Now the issue that we have there, obviously. First and foremost is how do you deal with the pitching aspects of it? Pitchers aren't going to pitch more than once every 5 days. So right. how the owners, from what I've heard, one of the things that they're looking to do is do what they do in the minor leagues, where they have, when they play double headers in the minor leagues, they play 7-inning games.
I didn't know that, brother. That's interesting.
Yeah. They do that. They do the same thing at the high school and college level as well. But how do you do that with pitchers? It's not like you can just say, well, we're playing 6 games in 3 days. So, whoever starts the first game can also start the 5th or the 6th game. Well, no, we can't because it's only going to be 2 days later. Right. So baseball, the owners are going to have to figure out how much money they can deal with losing, because they are going to lose money. And then we're going to have to see where it goes from there. Or are they going to say, all right, you know what? We're going to play fewer games than we want to, but if we play this many doubleheaders, we'll expand the rosters to, say, 30 players, because we're going to need at least 5 extra pitchers just to deal with all of the innings that we're going to have these guys play. And you're going to have to add a lot of pitchers. You're also going to have to add position players, because it's going to be a difficult ask for guys to play 14 innings every day. I mean, it's just a difficult thing. You're going to be asking guys to basically play 50% more per day than they're used to playing. And I know some people will say, "Oh, cry me a river. These guys are professional athletes." But when you're doing more on a physical basis than you're used to doing, that's the kind of things that leads to fatigue, and that's what leads to injuries. And the last thing that owners want to do in an abbreviated season is have players get injured, because that's going to throw off, how teams do, and it's going to affect your team's performance even more so in a shortened season than it would in the regular season. So those are two of the bigger aspects that we're looking at, and I wanted to kind of see what baseball does to address them. But those are the two most obvious. But like you said, they're going to need at least 3 weeks to ramp up and get back on the field and get back to playing exhibition games, and especially get the pitchers stretched out and ready to go. And that might be where the 7-inning games are an advantage, because that means the won't necessarily have to get stretched out to 6 or 7 innings. If a starting pitcher can go 4 or 5 in a 7-inning game, you may be able to say, all right, we can go to regular season games a little bit earlier, because these guys will get stretched out as the season continues.
Right.
It's still going to take probably 3 weeks of spring training once baseball finally does. And we can speculate on a date, but I'm still under my own personal impression. I don't think anything in sports is going to happen before July.
Well,
I hate to be that voice of doom, but I just don't see it happening based on everything that's still going on, based on how this virus is moving around. Baseball is not going to want to start games if there are still pockets of the country where this COVID-19 is still spreading and expanding, and you just can't do it. I mean, there was. No, go ahead, brother.
Well, one thing also, a lot of this COVID-19 is in New York. It's in the big cities. The smaller cities really haven't done testing the way New York and the other cities have, and they're going to find out maybe later that maybe more people have it than we know. And if you think about it, we players getting on the major league teams, but then you have all these players who play minor league who would be possible replacements for major league players if they get hurt, but if they can't even play because, let's say New Orleans, which is starting to become a hot spot for COVID-19, all of a sudden you can't even get near New Orleans. So
exactly,
there's a lot of things going on, and let's say at the end of April, this thing is under control, which it's not. We know it's not. You still got May to get better or work out, and that's when you start your season in June.
And that's why I'm saying July is July is realistic for baseball. It really is. And the other thing you have to remember and that's what you just said, brother. Where are Major League Baseball cities? Those are your big cities.
Right.
So if those are the places in the United States that are dealing with this thing and having the most cases, well, then how do you start a baseball season? How do you start a baseball season in New York in anything less than 3 months? I mean, New York right now is still a couple of weeks away from, all the doctors are saying that New York City is still a couple of weeks away from its peak. Well, when you have a peak, that means you still have that slope that you're going down as this thing starts to we start to get more of a handle on the numbers, and that's all well and good. I hope that happens sooner rather than later, but you're still going to have cases. You're still going to have patients. You're still going to have the spread, and you can't. That's not going to go from thousands to zero overnight. So
right.
The fact that all of that is still out there means that teams are not going to be able to put thousands of fans together. I mean, the only other solution is the possibility of playing games without fans.
Well, I was thinking of that. Now, there has been games when there have been no fans.
Right.
But at the same time, how much is the TV contracts worth where you have to open a stadium and not have fans there? That would be the thing.
Let's face it. Baseball teams, do they make? Obviously, they make money off of their gates. But is that the primary income? For a lot of teams, it's not.
Yeah, it's a TV contract.
Would it be a big hit for a team like the Yankees or the Dodgers and teams like that? Yes, obviously it would be. Those are teams that attract 3.5 million people per season. Would it be a big shot for a team like the Kansas City Royals? Not so much. So
no.
They would be more willing to, all right, you know what, no fans, or even like I hate to make the joke about Derek Jeter, but the Miami Marlins, there's already baseball people who say they play in front of no fans anyway. So
right.
That's another team where if you looked at the situation and you said, well, could we do this with no fans? Where they would say, I'm sure they would be on board, but the Yankees and teams that do well at the box office would have to be willing to take that hit and say, all right, you know what? It's just going to be team personnel. It's going to be reporters, and that's going to be it. But
even reporters. I mean, do you put them like on the other side of the stadium? Or the press box. You can't have reporters sitting next to each other. They need 6 or 7 feet.
You can do social distancing in the press box for regular season games. There aren't that many people there. You have all your regular beat writers, but you'd be able to work that out because that's what you have to remember. They have auxiliary press boxes that they use during the postseason. So there are places to put media people if that becomes an issue. The only concern that I would have would be maybe in a post game or pre-game setting where you'd have to arrange interviews so that the media people could get their early stories and get things written. But
maybe not.
It's doable. It's something that's doable.
Brother, maybe they just hand out press releases after the game. Quick note here. Your media guy says, okay, here's what so and so just said about the ground ball he missed or something, or here's the pitcher why he gave up the homer or why he struck out the player. I mean, you could have that too.
the other way of doing it would be the way they do it in England after Premier League game. It presents its own problem. In England, after a Premier League game, the reporters head for television.
Okay. We lose your brother?
Screens.
Okay, there you are. Tim?
You? Uh-oh.
What are you doing, bro?
Are you hearing me?
I'm hearing you now. I wasn't hearing you for...
I just got a bad message on my computer. Anyway, but on the in the Premier League games, the players are usually right after the game interviewed by a member of the team staff, and reporters will gather around television screens in the press room, and they will just literally hold their recording devices up to that television screen and get the sound from the interview. Now, I saw that when I went to a Premier League game more than a decade ago, and I was appalled because I was asking people, I was like, what is going on? And they were like, what do you mean? This is how we do things. And I'm like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. How do you ask questions? And they're like, yeah, we don't. And I'm like, yeah, that's the problem. So it's good for the athletes because most of them don't have to talk after a game. They don't have to address the media, and they don't really have a whole lot of media responsibility. Over here, it would totally change things. But
sure.
Would the press people be willing to do that? I think everybody would be willing to do something for in the short term, but I know for a fact that nobody would want that to be the new normal. I'm sure the players wouldn't mind, but the media would hate it.
Yeah, of course, but that doesn't mean it wouldn't happen. You know the way sometimes something happens. Say, oh, this is pretty good, and everyone say, no, it's not, but. It gets adopted anyway. One thing, brother, I'm thinking about also, we're talking about Major League Baseball, but guess what? The NBA and the NHL were almost ready to go into the playoffs. And, what are you going to do? Is there going to be an NBA or NHL playoffs? And even if they were to go in late, would they go to 2 rounds? Would they even have it? The season, was close to being over, but not over. There was still chances the Islanders might make the playoffs.
I mean, the hockey season had, about a dozen games left. The NBA season had more like about 20 or so games left. So where do you go? How do you figure out draft positions? I'm not sure what's going to happen at this point because if you look at, let's put it this way: every league wants to be able to finish its season, to be able to crown a champion, to be able to put that cap on a season. I don't know if we're going to get that this year, and I know the Premier League, again, to use them as an example, they're dealing with a similar situation, and they seem to be leaning towards. I mean, first they've even put a possibility in place. It's been put out there that will they actually put all of the teams in an area of England called the Midlands? I'm not even sure where that is, but they are thinking about putting all of the teams there and playing in neutral stadiums. In front of no fans, just so they could have the games on television and be able to finish their season. Now,
that makes a lot of sense, and I think it's a good idea.
I think it's a dreadful idea. What are you talking about? It's a good idea.
Well, at least get the games in. Yeah, I mean, the problem with the Premier League, I really don't want to talk about them, only because they do basically an 11-month season. So, they can take 3 months off, 4 months off, and still have a season. So. I know they work differently in Great Britain. I'm talking about the NHL. I mean, Players Association contracts end after the playoffs, and then people go into free agency or what they decide what to do with their career. So if you're used to getting it done in June and you want to take it to the end of August, let's say, or July, that doesn't really leave an off season to fix things and change things and assign people and stuff like that. So I think that's part of it. And of course, Major League Soccer. Major League Soccer is a long-term league very much too. It's more like 10 months now instead of 11 months. But they go to the end of October, and maybe they play less international games or friendlies, as they're called, something like that, because then they can fit in more games. So. But I think with the NHL and the NBA, when does the season officially end contractually, not anything else? So I look at that.
I don't think that's going to matter this year. I think we're looking at a situation, obviously, that is a once in a lifetime set of circumstances, and I think both sides will be willing to work together. But the other aspect of this is the players and the owners need to decide what is going to end this season, because I think everybody is at this point already looking forward to next season and to say, all right, we're going to have a normal season, but what is that? And the longer you push this season back, the more that impacts next season, because players need to rest. Players need to have an off season. You can't just go from one season to the next season and pretend again. Again, I'm talking about fatigue. I'm talking about injuries. If you just have players going nonstop, which would basically be for I don't know, 15 months or something like that. If you end one season and start another season almost immediately, you're going to have more injuries. And that is something that I'm sure owners are going to take into account. I know players will take it into account because there's no way they want to do that. And even though right now they are technically quote unquote resting, there's guys are still working out. They're keeping themselves in shape because they understand that, hey, our season could start off at any time. And if you're sitting on your couch every day, eating cookies and just drinking 5 cans of Coke a day, you're not gonna be in shape when the season starts. So guys are working out. They're working out in private. The teams are giving them workout plans to do, and they will be ready to a certain extent. I think probably with maybe I would say there might be a week of practices, even if that. There might not even be that much for hockey and basketball once the season is ready to resume. But again, we have to figure out what that means. Are basketball and hockey going to say, all right, you know what, the regular season's over, wherever you are right now, that's the playoffs? Are they going to cut the playoffs in half and say, all right, instead of 8 teams in the East and 8 teams in the West, we're going with 4 and 4, and we're going to play it that way? I think that you have to look at it from that standpoint, and you have to look at it from, what's the best thing in terms of having crowds together, and the best thing for that is either to not have crowds together or to have fewer crowds together, or as few as possible. That would mean less playoff games. I think in this circumstance, the Brooklyn Nets aside, we're almost lucky in that regard that there won't be a New York team in the playoffs, because we won't have to worry about the social distancing aspects here, where it's the worst place in the world, in the city, or in the country anyway, if not the world. So that would be a positive aspect, that New York City would be able to continue a downward trend by that point.
Right, and also I think the other thing is, one thing I've noticed about the whole thing with, at least with Sports Brother, there hasn't been a lot of like press releases or comments from the commissioners along the way. They've stepped aside. It's almost like it's too quiet. And I understand why, because sports is not the most important thing in the world right now. But it's just so quiet. It's almost too quiet.
Well, the NFL has been putting out stuff, but there's only so much that commissioners can say. I mean, nothing has changed. So what are you expecting a commissioner to say? The season is still on hold, and we're gonna be ready to go whenever the medical people say that it's safe to do so. Roger Goodell last week said that the NFL draft is going to remain on schedule.
How are they going to do that, brother? How are they going to do that?
I mean, it's really not that difficult to do. You can do everything by computer. You'll have. I mean, the most difficult thing for me, and thanks to fantastic inventions like Zoom here, like what we're using to do this radio show, people can put together conference calls with a bunch of team members. They can put together meetings with the league. I mean, it's easy enough to do technologically. Will the NFL draft be the event that it has been for several decades? No, it's not going to be, but that's okay. The NFL was able to have its combine. The only thing that they're not necessarily going to be able to do is have the team doctors do physicals. The NFL, the players who are going to be drafted have physicals done at the combine. So it's not like the medical information is going to be unknown, because it's already known from that. With the NBA, it's going to be a little bit more of a challenge because they won't have the pre-draft workouts. They won't be able to have individual players in to do individual workouts, but they'll be able to talk to them on the phone and interview them and get a sense of their character and review tape from the college basketball season in terms of how they play and what kind of player they are.
My brother got a question for you. Do you think the NFL should wait a month on this draft thing? I mean, especially since we got the distancing thing that came out yesterday from our president. Do you think that maybe the NFL should wait a month? Would it affect their league operation if they said, you know what, we're going to do this in May? You know,
I know. Well, this Goodell said he doesn't want to wait, and the main reason is that because they don't know if they're going to be able to, they don't know what the circumstances are going to be like in a month. So he would rather get the draft done, create an event. I guess it would help maybe excite the fans a little bit, and I can see what he's saying. I don't necessarily agree with it. Me personally, I want to postpone everything. I think it's absolute idiocy to get people together in any way whatsoever. But that being said, we're not. It's not going to be a traditional draft. Goodell is not going to be on the stage with any players, handing them a jersey with a number 1 and a name on it. None of that's going to happen. So it's going to be, the only way this is going to happen is if ESPN somehow arranges with whatever players are available to do FaceTime sort of interviews, and that's how we're going to see reaction is through everybody's phone.
Right.
So it's not necessarily going to change anything in terms of social distancing because people are not going to be congregating together, and like I said, technologically this can be done because we're doing it right now. So it's not going to be what it was. It's not going to be necessarily as exciting with a player and his whole family there and everybody hugging him. And who knows? We might see people who do that, and that would absolutely infuriate me if it does happen. But we're going to see basically it's going to be that new phone generation where everybody is their own little media outlet as long as they have a phone and an internet connection, and we can do interviews and hear reactions, and everybody will say, well, hey, I'm ready, looking forward to joining, Team X, and can't wait to get going, and can't wait until this whole virus thing is done with, and I can get on the field and we can get back to normal. And that'll be 30 interviews, the same thing right there.
Right. You're listening to 90.3 WHPC, the voice of Nassau Community College. This is from the press box right here, either on 90.3 or maybe the iHeartRadio app or TuneIn or nccradio.org. It's all over the place. This is from the press box. I am Rob Leonard. Joining me, of course, is my brother Tim. And just a reminder, Tim, because I know you care, Big Ed Newland's coming up next at 10 o'clock with the Good Gold Show. I know you'll be listening to that. And,
absolutely.
And then, of course, I care. Of course. And then a couple of shows to remind people of. Standard Serenade every Saturday at 5 p.m., hosted by Glenn DeMilt, playing the standards that, let's be honest, don't get played much on the radio anymore. These, the Frank Sinatras, the Bing Crosbys, the Dean Martins, the Peggy Lees, all that is played on Glenn's show, Standard Serenade, every Saturday at 5 p.m. right here on 90.3 WHPC. And don't forget about Shades of Jazz, Greg Bigelow. You like jazz, really cool jazz, and Greg's a cool guy. You got to listen to Shades of Jazz every Saturday. What time is he on? He's on 7 p.m. to 9 p.m.
7 p.m., brother. Come on.
I was thinking of Shades of New Jazz, which is on at 11 o'clock. It's on after Michael Anthony's Unforgettable show, and he plays new jazz, and it's all new jazz. It's you got the standard jazz, shades of jazz, and you got the new jazz at 11. So Greg's all over the place with the jazz. He does a great job too. Anyway, brother, one thing that has happened, which wasn't a surprise, the Olympics have been pushed off for a year. They're going to be in July of 2021. Not a surprise there, because it's the Olympics and they can do that. And, So that happened, last week or a week before, whatever. Not a surprise because you have to, with the Olympics, you have to plan not days in advance or months in advance, almost years in advance, because you got to make sure the hotels are there. You got to make sure that the town is ready. There's so many things you have to do, and if no one shows up, then they lose tons of money. And plus the Olympics, like you said, if there's no audience, it doesn't count. Or maybe you didn't say that, but I'm saying that. But yeah, so
you're not allowed to say that.
Okay. Anyway, so the Olympics have been pushed to next year. Not a surprise, and it gives them time to, hopefully this we're all taken care of by then. Also, brother,
well, that's a big one, brother. That's a big one. Let's not just dismiss that, because the big thing with the Olympics is we're dealing with obviously the international competition.
Right.
And people from all over the world are going to be there. Athletes have been in preparation mode because it was the Olympics were only a few months away. They were supposed to happen in July and August in Japan, and now they're saying that we're going to do this a year from now. So athletes have gone from being in preparation mode where they're just kind of putting themselves out there and kind of just fine tuning their performances, and basically they were ready to go at this point. You're not going to change a whole lot in the last 3 months before a competition, but now they have to ramp up their training again, and they have to prepare for a new finish line date. So, I mean, that's what it's like to be an Olympic caliber athlete. You need to prepare with a deadline in mind, so that your performance is at its maximum. And right now, thousands of athletes have had that rug pulled out from under them and are going to have to do this all over again in 6 to 7 months is when they're going to have to really start ramping up again and getting themselves ready for next year's Olympics.
Well,
now, I think this is a good idea? Absolutely. This is the exact right move the Olympic Committee made, and it was jarring when it was announced last week, but this was the 100% correct decision.
Of course, the other thing about the athletes, brother, and this is something to think about. Let's say an athlete's ready for this year, but next year, they're not ready, or they're too old. A gymnast is now 15 instead of 14, or something along those lines. I'm not being sarcastic, but and also do the athletes.
That wasn't the best example, brother.
Okay, but you know what I mean. But it's like also let's say the athlete. Are they given? If they're on the teams right now, are they guaranteed next year they're on the team? So they have to have the whole, the prelims, so to speak, to get on the Olympic team to happen again. That's something that might happen.
It's also a good question, and I think it's going to depend on the federations. And you might first of all, you're going to have at least a couple of athletes who won't be able to compete, who have been basically kind of hanging on and saying that this is going to be my last hurrah, my last shot at glory, and I'm going to see what I can do, but that this is it. And there's going to be a handful of those people who say, with the extra year, that either A, I don't want to keep training for another year, and I can't do it because I'm not making any money, and I need to figure out my future and support a family, or it's going to be a fringe person, either somebody who qualified and didn't expect to qualify, or they for whatever reason that person qualified and somebody else who was maybe more deserving didn't. Will an Olympic committee decide to change that and say, you know what, this person qualified, but we know that this other person is better? Who knows? It's going to happen on a case by case basis, but there are going to be some Olympic hopes realized, and there are also going to be some that wind up getting shattered because of either decisions that are made by athletes or by federations based on this new timeline.
Right. It's going to be way different. And, I mean, the Olympics make all their money from NBC, their contract, the long-term Olympic contract. And, NBC makes a lot of money showing the Olympics. So I'm not surprised it got moved as quickly as it did, because you can't do it a month beforehand, because, the people doing the broadcasting are already there. They're setting up, they're making sure everything is perfect. And you can't send them to Japan if there's a pandemic going on. So I think I was part of it, that they did it so early, and I was happy they did. I feel bad. I feel bad for the athletes, though. You plan, you get psyched up, you're ready, and then all of a sudden it's not there as the way it should be. Let's talk about Tim. How'd this happen? Noah Syndergaard has to go. Hello, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
You asked me how this happened. I didn't know what you were talking about.
Oh, okay. Noah Syndergaard needs Tommy John surgery. Now, this doesn't just happen.
The tearing of the ulnar collateral ligament, brother. That's
right, but how did they not know this before the season started? Did he rip it in practice? Did. Then why didn't they say it?
They did.
Why?
Well, he was apparently being looked at for some arm soreness. Now, 2 pitchers last week decided to have Tommy John surgery, and one of them is Noah Syndergaard, and the other one is Chris Sale of the Red Sox. So we're looking at. I personally, I think both of these decisions were made because of the shortened season, and I think both of them said, you know what, my arm hurts. I'm going to need this to have to be done anyway. Why don't I get it done now while I still have no idea what's going on with the current season? I mean,
right.
I don't think it's going to happen, but it's still a possibility that we don't have a baseball season this year. So, I mean, and granted, I understand that there's no way, people will pish posh all over that, but we don't know what the future is at this point. So, what if you have an injured arm and at some point you're going to need surgery? Why wouldn't you have that surgery now when you might be looking at a year with no baseball? So why not get it done now and lose as little time as possible and be ready to go at some point next season? And I think, Syndergaard, from what I read, had a pretty significant tear in his ulnar collateral ligament.
Right.
And he would have needed the surgery either way. Chris Sale, it sounded like it was more an elective thing where they said and I could be wrong about this, but it seemed to me anyway by what I read, it was presented to him by them saying that, look, your arm is not in a good place. You could heal with rest, kind of like what Tanaka has done. You might heal, but we're recommending surgery because we don't think it's going to heal, and this would be the fastest course for you to get back on the mound at 100%, as opposed to possibly waiting, then having to have it next year. And if we lose all of this season and then you're not here next year, now you're losing 2 years. So I think that's kind of what led to these decisions, is that it seemed like, all right, I'm going to lose less playing time if I do the surgery now. Now, the thing with Syndergaard, he's a free agent after next season.
Right.
So what is that going to mean both for him and the Mets? He's not, he's obviously not pitching in 2020. His next time on the mound will be in 2021. And whether that's in May or June or whatever, he won't be ready for the start of the season, but he should be ready fairly close to the start of the season. That's the other reason to have the surgery is now, and to make it so that he'll be able to pitch as much next season as possible. But where does he go from here? What kind of contract does he get? This is a guy who throws as hard as any pitcher in Major League Baseball. Highest average velocity fastball in Major League Baseball history. So where does he go? What kind of contract did the Mets give him? I don't know.
I don't know either. I mean, it's there's going to be a lot of weirdness because let's say there's no season. You get paid different money if you're in the minor league or major league. Well,
yeah, but guys who are in this situation, they're not getting. It's not a two-way contract situation. That's what I want to see is how are they going to resolve service time?
Right.
How is that aspect of the season going to be? Because usually service time is determined, like every game is a percentage, and it's all based on a 180-day season because that's what they deal with in the major leagues. Well, obviously now it's not going to be 180 days.
No.
So how is service time going to be determined? And are owners going to hold firm on that, or are they going to say, all right, you know what, a year is a year, and but if they do that and they only play, let's say, 120 game schedule, how do you prorate that? So I don't know. I don't know how that's going to be worked out, but I can guarantee you that owners aren't going to just roll over on that because service time is the way for them to control players and player salaries. And we could be in for a fight on that, or maybe they'll surprise me and come to an easy understanding. But like I said, I would be surprised if the owners just rolled over on that and said, "Oh, well, we'll just."
Right, I understand. Just to take a little sidestep here, brother.
What's
that? You there? Okay.
Yes, I'm here.
One thing about what's happening right now is that all the sports channels have absolutely nothing to show. And one of the things that they've been doing, the Major League Baseball Network this past week showed two of the greatest Met games ever. Game 5 of the NL East at NLCS against Houston in '86. And it's interesting to know, brother, that the Astros did not cheat in that game. And then Game 6.
Debatable. That was Mike Scott pitched in that game, right?
Well, that's true. They had the
so let's not say they didn't cheat.
There might be a history with the Astros. Then is what you're saying. Anyway, then Game 6 they showed all 16 innings. It was on for 5 hours. It was so great seeing an unedited version of it. They showed an edited version earlier in the day, and they replayed it twice. It was just such a great thing because nothing against SNY. And I've said this before, but they don't pay attention to their history at all. They've never really shown any of these games. I mean, you can reshow these games. They have the rights to the Mets games. That means all past games too. And it was very cool to watch these two games happen in real time. And one thing, brother, I forgot how good Keith Jackson was as a Major League Baseball announcer because I always thought of him as a football announcer, and here he is Nelly. And, and when he worked in 76, 77, 78, he worked with Cosell, and Bob Uecker, I think, was one of the guys. But he worked with Cosell, and Cosell just wouldn't shut up.
Yeah.
So
Cosell was like that.
Yeah. So, and Keith Jackson, he was working with Tim McCarver, and it was very good to hear him. He was a baseball announcer, I guess, too, at one point, or he was just that professional that he could do anything.
Keith Jackson was an everything announcer. It didn't matter what it was.
So and then, brother, you'll love this. The other two things that happened, as you know, the Yes Network has a policy of not showing games from the past where the Yankees lose. Good policy. Even if it is, a really great game. But on Fox Sports 1, they showed the Arizona Yankees game from the 2001 World Series Game 7, which, of course, they lost.
Terrible game.
And then your boy Croce must have been watching this, I'm not sure, but on the Major League MLB Network, they had Game 7 of the ALCS, Yankees versus Red Sox. We all know how that turned out.
2003?
4.
Oh, that was a bad game too. Bro.
Yeah, that was a bad game.
Let's not talk about that game.
So it was interesting to see two games you wouldn't see on the S Network on two other channels. So, ESPN
I see no reason to watch either one of those.
Yeah, well, of course you don't. I was enjoying it. Also, ESPN was showing ESPN 8.
The Ocho.
The Ocho.
Loved it. Loved the Ocho. I was watching the Ocho. Watched some Golden Tee.
Yes.
A little golf video game that's outstanding. They had the arm wrestling. John Brzenk won another title. And they had actual dodgeball.
Right.
Come on. Bold strategy, Cotton. How do you can't, I don't know why they don't show that more often.
You know what? I bet you they start something with this because they need programming, even though they don't need it when the seasons are going. But this is so unusual. I mean, I'm waiting for Australian rules football to be aired again. Like in the 80s, in the early 80s when they had no programming, and they showed Australian rules football, which was great to watch. That was it's basically rugby. It was fun to watch, man. So it's interesting to see what they're showing because there's nothing to show. I mean, there's no new games, so they got to show the old ones.
Yes, there is no live sports going on right now.
No, and I wish I know Major League Baseball has it. There are 3 games I'd like to see that were shown years ago as part of baseball's greatest games. 52 World Series, Game 6 and Game 7. You had so many World Series. I mean, so many Hall of Famers in those 2 games. You couldn't believe how many were there.
Yeah.
And then the other one I want to see, and I had it on my DVR and I erased it, but I never watched it, is the game where Bill Mazeroski became the king of Pittsburgh. 1960, Game 7, World Series, Yankees, Pittsburgh. And I wish they'd show that again because that was a big deal when they found it.
I don't know. It's been shown enough.
What?
It's been shown enough.
Well, I would like to see it again. It was, there's a story behind the tape too. It was in Bing Crosby's archive for about 50 years. And one day they were going through films and they said, "Hey, what is this?" And then you found out later that Bing was away, and he had it filmed. I mean, he even had a kinescope made so we can watch it when he got home because he was part owner of the Pirates at the time.
Yeah, Bing's a big baseball guy.
So after, I guess, he aired it or looked at it, he just left it in his archive. And then, of course, the original tape was gone a long time ago. So I wouldn't mind seeing that either. But it's interesting how there's just the sports channels have absolutely nothing to show except really old games. Now, I like really old games, so I'm not bothered by it. But it is kind of interesting. Now, brother, what's going on with Giancarlo Stanton with the Yankees? He was supposed to be hurt, and now he's all better, isn't he?
Well, he was hurt. He's one of the guys that this whole stoppage has helped because Aaron Boone said last week that Giancarlo Stanton is, quote, ready to go whenever the season kicks back off. Stanton, as you might remember, brother, suffered a right calf injury during spring training because apparently his legs are made out of glass. But here's the problem, though, like we were talking about before. If and when baseball gets going again and says, all right, we're gonna start the season on July 1st, let's say, and we're gonna start spring training on June 10th, and we're gonna go 3 weeks, and we're gonna get guys ready to play, and then we're gonna go from there. Well, Giancarlo Stanton's got 3 more weeks to get hurt again. So yeah, he's healthy right now. I don't know how long that will last once the Yankees get going with when spring training resumes. But as of today, right now, Giancarlo Stanton is healthy. So you take it with a grain of salt.
He would have missed opening day, is what you're saying, though.
He would have been close. I don't know.
Well, would they said, okay, we can start you and take a chance.
Opening day was supposed to be a couple days ago, so it's quite possible that he would have been in the opening day lineup, or they might have said, you know what, he's going to skip opening day. We got the day off, and then he'll play again, for the second game. I don't know, but it was that kind of right down to the wire sort of thinking. So we'll see. Aaron Judge, we're still waiting on him. He definitely would have missed part of the season. I don't know how much. Now we're talking about the injury that he suffered to his rib that at first they said might require surgery. Now apparently they're saying that at some point he had a collapsed lung that went along with that injury. I have no idea why. I know. I have no idea why none of this came out or why none of this was addressed. In the off season, how does Aaron Judge have a collapsed lung and nothing is done? I don't even understand it. I mean, I'll be honest, I'm a little infuriated by it because it seems somebody screwed up, and whether that was Aaron Judge not telling somebody that this happened, or the Yankees just saying, well, the doctor saying it'll fix itself with rest. I don't know, but somebody dropped the ball here.
Yeah, we're running out of time, brother. We have a couple of more topics to get to because there's not many topics to talk about.
NFL draft, brother. NFL draft.
Actually, no, I was going to talk about, we talked about the draft a little bit, but I was going to talk about the fact that Tom Brady signed with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for a 2-year deal. I think he's trying to be the next George Blanda, in the sense, one of the oldest players ever to play in the NFL. Whether he can make it to, I think George was 49, but George was also a place kicker in the last few years. Though I do remember him coming in once for Kenny Stabler.
Yes.
And George barely could walk.
Wow.
But I do remember a game later in his career. But Brady signed with the Buccaneers, and a lot of Patriots fans are upset because they wanted him to end his career at New England. And, Robert Kraft said the right things about Tom Brady, but still let him go. So it's kind of interesting how, again and again, with many players, they spend their lives with one team and then they get shoved off unceremoniously.
Well, this is a situation where Brady obviously wanted to leave. I think that he and the Patriots could have gotten something done if both sides really wanted to.
Right.
And it just seemed like Brady was a little tired of Bill Belichick and his ways. And I think that Belichick, who is obviously very well known for being very harsh in his player evaluations, I think that he was just he just said, you know what, 42-year-old quarterback, I can't see it. And it's not where we should be going. And Brady wanted a raise, and he got 2 years, $50 million, plus another $9 million in incentives. The oddest thing that I think this contract contains is that the Buccaneers can't use the franchise tag on him in 2 years, which means that Tom Brady is already thinking about becoming a free agent again at age 44. So, hey, you know what? I'll tell you what. The guy has taken care of himself like no other athlete in maybe football history. He certainly isn't a 42-year-old quote unquote quarterback, but at the same time, I think he needs to understand that he has been protected by the Patriots system. He has been protected by excuse me, a very good offensive line throughout his career.
Well, that's my question for you. That's my question for you, brother. He's going to the Buccaneers. Sorry for cutting you off, but we only have 2 minutes left. Do the Buccaneers have the front line that the Patriots have, or at least the coaching capabilities that allow you to have a front line like the Patriots have?
I think Bruce Arians is a very smart coach, first of all, and I think that he is smart enough where he is going to put in a lot of packages and do a lot of things similar to what Brady did in New England. To try to change Tom Brady now and make him more of a drop back passer and to have him sit in a pocket and be exposed and potentially just get destroyed back there. That's not what Bruce Arians is going to do. It's a stupid thing to try to do with a 42-year-old quarterback, even one who's in phenomenal shape. Because Tom Brady has never been fast. He's never been, he's never had great escapability. He is a guy who, if you put him back there long enough, he will get hit. And you don't want 40-year-old quarterbacks getting hit. So I think that is what the Bucs will look at. They have good receivers, but they have good downfield receivers. So I think that what they're probably going to try to do is get the ball in the hands of those receivers earlier and let them try to make moves and get yards after the catch that way, as opposed to them trying to beat the DBs with their speed and get open that way. So it's going to probably take a little bit of adjustment by the receivers and maybe a tiny bit of adjustment by Brady. But I really can't see them changing very much for on Brady's end of it, and they want him to be able to do what he does well, and we all know what that is, and that's quick passes and let the receivers do what they do, as opposed to Tom Brady's going 7-step drop all of a sudden at this point in his career. That's not
right, and that's how you stay healthy. You don't get hit. You do the 3-step back thing. Yeah. Anyway, brother, we've knocked out another hour on the show.
How about
brother? We'll do this again next week. Hopefully, there's more sports to talk about or something, or maybe we'll talk about other topics. Maybe top 10 sports movies or something. I don't know. I want to thank Sean Novat in the southeast part of Nassau County, keeping this all together and keeping the show together, because he had to work his hands to get us on the air, because we're in 2 different spots. This has never happened before. Though I know the Motormouth guys yesterday did the same thing too. So we thank you, Sean, for doing that. And also, just one more thing. If it was 6 weeks ago or 7 weeks ago or 8 weeks ago now, imagine we said, Timothy, we're going to start testing everyone as soon as possible. We're going to have 1 million testing kits made right now.
I'd be very happy about that.
We'd have a lot more understanding of what's going on in our world. Don't let them tell you otherwise. Anyway, thank you for listening. My name is Rob Leonard, and you've been listening to From the Press Box. Tim, you're at Twitter at
Real Tim Leonard.
By the way, Tim, one more thing. You have a hat on, the Texas hat. Oh, I see you on the screen.
That's a Tennessee hat, brother.
Oh, Tennessee hat. I thought you were.
The reason I got it because it's got a big T on it.
I thought it was you were wearing the Texas Tech for our cousin. So
no, that would be more of a burnt orange. This is orange.
Okay, thanks, brother, and back to the studio. Take care, and bye-bye.